William Shakespeare did a great deal of traveling from place to place, not the least of which was because he lived in Stratford-upon-Avon, but he worked in London. And by modern terms, the distance between those two cities, it takes about 2 hours to get from one to the other by car. So this was a good distance. He had a lot of traveling just to go to work every day. But then once he was in London, the bard also traveled from place to place within the city. With all of this getting around town and getting around the countryside, was there any kind of public transportation available for Shakespeare? Could the bard have hailed a cab or the early modern equivalent of a cab when he was in the city? Let's find out right now on That Shakespeare Life. Were there also land taxis? Could Shakespeare have called
Yes.
a cab in Elizabethan London?
Yes, he could. Uh, the only so this is later Shakespeare because they
Just
only
when
really
you
become
thought
a thing,
Shakespeare
right?
couldn't get cooler, you can see him standing on the streets of London
Oh,
hailing a cab.
well, exactly. He'd have to hail because the city prohibited cab stands. They didn't want, for example, the Royal Exchange would be an obvious place for carriages to gather for this business. And so the city prohibited it. Now, whether that had teeth, I can't tell you. The city is also trying to limit the number of carriages in London. They want to limit it to 300. Forget it. It's impossible. So yes, these the carriage men would drive up and down, or sometimes they would park and hope not to be rousted. And you could hail a cab, and it would take you to hopefully to where you wanted to go. You probably spent a lot of time just sitting in the cab, fighting traffic. If you've ever hailed a cab in central London, right in the middle of the day, you know what this is like.
In this episode with Bob Buckles, we cover the excellent research of his student Noah Phelps, who is a brilliant researcher and a really nice guy, but he wasn't up for being on the podcast. So he asked Bob to come on and share the research that he had worked on for this article. You can hear Bob share details about how the roads, infrastructure, vehicles, and even traffic tickets were like in Shakespeare's lifetime in our full conversation available right now on the podcast at CassidyCash.com/episode 364. While you're there, remember there are history extras, including insider research, museum artifacts, period portraits, and primary documents, all related to the history of roads, travel, traffic tickets, and more from the life of William Shakespeare that you can look at and explore while you're listening to the show. You can log in on the show notes page as a patron or join us there as well if you're not already a supporter. And all of these extras will expand right there on the website. That's it for this week. Thank you for watching. I'm Cassidy Cash, and I hope you learned something new about the Bard. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.